me, Brian, early 30s, living off commission, sell enterprise tech for a respectable but unsexy software company. No kombucha taps, no ping pong tables, just contracts and quarterly targets. Our crew isn't support, it's the revenue stream. If we slow down, the whole place feels it. For half a decade, the system ran smooth and predictable. The philosophy was straightforward. Close deals, earn your cut. Front and center in the office hung a massive screen. Leaderboard blazing for everyone to see. It showed everyone's name, their monthly quota, and their sales in real time. Your commission was directly tied to how much you sold over your quota. You sell big, you earn big, you slack off, you get a base salary and not much else. It was pure, simple, and it worked. The office had a constant buzz. Phones ringing, guys talking strategy, a bit of friendly trash talk. The king of this jungle was Derek. Derek was a natural. One of those guys who could sell water to a drowning man. He lived for the top spot on that leaderboard. It wasn't just about the money for him, though the money was insane. It was about the win. He'd close a massive deal, slam his headset on the desk, and walk over to the board just to watch his name flash green at the #1 spot. We all wanted to beat him. Every month was a new race. Most of us never did, but trying made us all better and richer. I was usually a consistent #2 or #3. I wasn't as flashy as Derek, but I was steady. My clients trusted me. My commission checks paid my mortgage and then some. Then there was Nolan. Nolan was in his late 40s, a veteran of a dozen sales floors. He'd seen it all. Nothing surprised him. He'd watch Derek's victory laps with a tired, cynical smile. He'd say things like, "Enjoy it while it lasts, kid. The world always finds a way to screw with a good thing." We thought he was just a grumpy old guy. Turns out he was a prophet. Our old boss, a guy named Dave, was a sales guy himself. He got it. He set the quotas, managed the budget, and otherwise left us alone to hunt. As long as the numbers were green, he was happy. Then, a few months back, Dave got a huge promotion, moving up to a national role. We were happy for him, gave him a nice send-off. We all figured one of the senior guys from the team would get his job. We were wrong. A week later, an email from HR announced our new department head. Her name was Chaya. The email had a picture, young, maybe late 20s, with that very specific severe look of someone who is extremely online and takes it all very seriously. Her bio didn't mention a single day of sales experience. It was all about team-building initiatives, workplace culture enhancement, and fostering equitable environments. A cold feeling started to creep into the office. The day she arrived, the entire vibe changed. She walked in like she was entering a hazardous waste zone. She looked at the 12 of us, all men, sitting at our desks, and her expression was a mix of pity and disgust. Like we were a problem that needed to be solved. The leaderboard, our glorious glittering monument to merit, seemed to offend her the most. She kept staring at it, her lips pursed. She called a mandatory meeting for that afternoon. We all filed into the conference room. Derek was still amped from closing a deal, talking about his numbers. Chaya walked in and the room went silent. She didn't introduce herself in a normal way. No, "Hey, I'm Chaya, excited to be here." Instead, she launched into a prepared speech. It was a masterclass in corporate buzzwords. She told us she had been brought in to realign the department's culture with modern corporate values. She said the current environment was, in her words, a breeding ground for toxic masculinity. I looked at Nolan. He was leaning back in his chair, eyes closed, a faint smile on his face. He was enjoying the show. Chaya pointed a finger towards the office in the direction of the leaderboard. She explained that public rankings and individual incentives create a hyper-competitive, non-inclusive, and psychologically unsafe atmosphere. Derek actually started to open his mouth to argue, but one of the other senior guys subtly shook his head. "Don't engage." She went on to say that competition is a patriarchal construct designed to elevate a few aggressive individuals at the expense of group harmony. The goal was no longer to be the best. The new goal was collaborative success. Then she dropped the bombshells. Effective immediately, the leaderboard was being removed. All individual commissions and performance-based bonuses were abolished. The room felt like all the air had been sucked out of it. My entire financial plan for the year evaporated in that single sentence. Derek looked like he had been physically struck. His face was pale. That's his entire motivation, his entire reason for getting up in the morning, gone. In its place, she was introducing a new team success dividend. If and only if the entire department collectively hit 100% of the monthly sales target, every single person would receive a small, flat-rate bonus. Someone asked how much the bonus would be. She named a number. I did some quick math in my head. It was less than a quarter of my worst bonus month in the last 3 years. For Derek, it was probably less than what he spent on coffee. It was a rounding error, an insult. She finished her speech with a bright, artificial smile. She told us she was so excited to build a workplace based on equity, not rivalry. She expected us all to be thrilled. The meeting ended. Nobody said a word. We just filed back out to our desks in a daze. The next morning, we came in and there was a blank space on the wall where the leaderboard used to be. It was like a tombstone. The mood was bleak. The usual morning buzz was gone. It was dead silent. A few of the guys were polishing their resumes. Others were just staring blankly at their screens. Derek was furious. He was pacing, talking about going to HR, going to Chaya's boss, raising hell. He was ready to burn the whole place down. It was Nolan who stopped him. A few of us had gathered near the coffee machine, a sort of spontaneous council of war. Nolan was calm. He told Derek that going to HR was the worst possible thing he could do. He explained it perfectly. The moment Derek, the top-performing white male, complains about the new female boss and her equity policies, the story writes itself. He'd be labeled as a misogynist who can't handle a woman in charge. He'd be accused of being resistant to change, a relic of the old boys club. His legitimate financial concerns would be dismissed as the whining of a privileged man who couldn't stand to lose his top spot. HR would protect her, not him. She was the diversity hire. He was the problem she was hired to fix. We all knew he was right. We'd seen it happen in other departments. Derek deflated. He knew it was true. So what do? We just take it? Nolan took a slow sip of his coffee. He said we weren't going to fight her. We weren't going to complain. We were going to give her exactly what she asked for. No competition? Fine. We won't compete. Collaboration? You got it. We will collaborate on doing the absolute bare minimum. A team bonus for hitting 100% of the target? Okay. Our new collective goal is 100.0%, and not a single percentage point more. He called it malicious compliance. Work to the rule, not to the spirit. She wanted to turn a team of sharks into a school of goldfish, so we would become the most placid, cooperative, and mediocre goldfish she had ever seen. The idea spread like wildfire. There was no formal agreement, just a collective understanding, a quiet nod between desks. The rebellion would be silent. The first month of the new era began. The change was surreal. The office, once a high-energy powerhouse, became as quiet as a library. The phones stopped ringing constantly. The urgent high-stakes calls were replaced by routine check-ins. No one was pushing for the extra sale, the upsell, the long-shot deal. Why would we? There was no incentive. Derek's transformation was the most dramatic. We had a shared spreadsheet to track our collective progress towards the monthly goal. It was Chaya's idea, for transparency. Derek calculated his exact share of the total target. It came out to about 1/12 of the goal. He spent the first 2 weeks of the month methodically closing just enough deals to hit that number precisely. On the day he hit his target, he leaned back in his chair, put his feet up on his desk, and started browsing luxury watch websites. He did this for the rest of the month. If a client called, he'd take the call, but he wouldn't push. He wouldn't try to close. He'd just say, "I'll get back to you next month on that." I did the same. I hit my minimum number, and then my motivation just vanished. It was a strange feeling. For the first time in years, I wasn't stressed. I also wasn't engaged. I was just present. I spent my afternoons organizing my desktop folders, clearing out my email inbox, reading the news. We all did our part. We'd check the tracker. "Hey Steve, you're a bit behind. The team needs you." "Mike, you're a little too far ahead. Maybe slow it down." We were collaborating perfectly. The last week of the month was tense. We were at 95% of the goal. A few of the newer guys started to panic, thinking we wouldn't make it. Nolan just laughed. He said, "Watch this." He had a few deals he'd been keeping warm, sitting on the contracts. On the second to last day of the month, he closed them. It pushed us to 100.5%. He was immediately scolded via group chat for overachieving and making the rest of us look bad. It was all a joke, but not really. We had met the goal. We had succeeded by Chaya's new metrics. The cost of that success was staggering. The final numbers came in. Our department's total revenue was down 42% compared to the previous month. It was the worst month for the department in over a decade. We all knew it was a catastrophe. Chaya, however, saw it differently. She called another meeting. She stood in front of us with a huge smile, holding a printout of the results. She congratulated us on our amazing teamwork and for coming together to achieve a common goal. She didn't mention the 42% drop in revenue, not once. It was as if that number didn't exist. In her world, the only thing that mattered was that we hit 100% of the target she set. The process was more important than the result. Derek, unable to help himself, raised his hand. He asked very politely if management was concerned about the massive drop in overall sales. Chaya's smile tightened. She told him that he was still thinking in an outdated, individualistic framework. She explained that we were in a rebuilding phase, and that a temporary dip in numbers was a small price to pay for a healthier, more sustainable work culture. She said she was incredibly proud of us. Then, to add insult to injury, she announced a new mandatory activity. Every morning, we would now begin the day with a 15-minute sharing circle, a chance for us to go around the room and share our feelings about the workplace and our personal challenges. She wanted us to be vulnerable with each other. I looked at the faces in the room, a group of seasoned professional salesmen. The idea of sitting in a circle holding hands and singing Kumbaya was met with a universal silent groan. The first paycheck of the new regime arrived. My take-home pay was down by about half. I saw Derek looking at his pay stub with a look of pure disgust before deleting the email. The tiny team success dividend was there, a pathetic little lump sum that barely covered a week of groceries. The second month started, and the new routine was even worse. The morning sharing circles were the most painfully awkward 15 minutes of my life, every single day. Chaya would start sharing something about how she was feeling centered or challenged by patriarchal microaggressions in the coffee shop. Then it would be our turn. Most of us just mumbled, "I'm fine," or feeling good about the week. One of the younger guys, trying to be a good sport, once shared that he was stressed about his sick dog. Chaya told him that his attachment to pet ownership was an interesting avenue to explore from a post-capitalist perspective. The kid never shared anything again. Nolan was a master of the sharing circle. When it was his turn, he would just say, "I feel a deep and abiding sense of workplace harmony," in the most deadpan voice imaginable, and then stare at Chaya without blinking until she moved on. The work itself got even slower. Now that we knew the system, we paced ourselves even more. Why rush to hit your minimum target in 2 weeks when you could stretch it out over 4? The office was a ghost town. Long lunches became the norm. Guys would leave at 4:30 p.m. The hustle was completely gone. We were all working just hard enough not to get fired. Chaya seemed oblivious. She would walk around the quiet office with a satisfied smile, as if the silence was proof of the calm, non-toxic environment she had created. She didn't see a lack of productivity. She saw peace. Halfway through the month, the numbers on our shared tracker were bad, really bad. We were trending to hit maybe 70% of the target. The casual, "let's just hit the minimum" plan had backfired. The collective apathy was so total that even the minimum seemed like too much effort. Suddenly, there was a risk of not even getting the tiny, insulting bonus. Chaya finally noticed. The panic started to set in for her. Her calm, smiling facade began to crack. She started sending out motivational emails every morning, full of inspirational quotes and corporate art of diverse teams rowing a boat together. No one read them. She started scheduling one-on-one meetings with each of us. My meeting was bizarre. She didn't ask about my clients or my pipeline. She asked me how I was feeling about my role in the team. I gave her some generic corporate answer. She told me she felt I wasn't emotionally invested in the group's success. I wanted to tell her that I'm emotionally invested in my mortgage, my car payment, and my kids' college fund, all of which were now in jeopardy because of her policies. But I just nodded and said I would try to be more invested. Her meeting with Derek was apparently legendary. We couldn't hear it all, but we saw them through the glass wall of her office. She was animated, waving her hands. Derek was leaning back, looking completely bored. He told us later that she accused him of psychological sabotage. She said he was the former pack leader, and his lack of enthusiasm was poisoning the rest of the team. She believed his wounded male ego was causing him to deliberately underperform to make her look bad. Derek's response was perfect. He told her he was following her rules. He was collaborating. He was not competing. He was focused on the team goal. He asked her to point to a single rule he had broken. She couldn't. He had done nothing wrong according to her own system. He was her model employee, and it was destroying her. The last week of the month was a complete disaster. Chaya was in full meltdown mode. She tried a new tactic: public shaming, disguised as encouragement. She would walk over to someone's desk and say, loud enough for everyone to hear, "John, the team is really counting on you to close that deal today. We don't want to let everyone down, do we?" It had the opposite effect. It just made everyone resent her more. The final days ticked by, the numbers didn't move, the month ended. The final result, 78% of the target. We had failed. There would be no team success dividend. The total revenue was even lower than the previous month. The company had lost a massive amount of money. A deep, dark gloom settled over the office. We hadn't just lost our commissions. We had lost, period. And it felt awful. We were all waiting for the other shoe to drop. There was no way management could ignore numbers this bad. Something had to break. The day after the disastrous month end, Chaya called another mandatory meeting. Her cheerful, condescending demeanor was gone. She looked stressed. There were dark circles under her eyes. She walked into the conference room and didn't even say good morning. Her tone was sharp, accusatory. She told us that she was profoundly disappointed in our performance. She said that she had provided us with a psychologically safe and collaborative framework, and we had failed to embrace the opportunity. According to her, the problem wasn't her system. The problem was us. Our ingrained resistance to collaborative methodologies. Derek started to say something, but Nolan, sitting next to him, put a hand on his arm. Not yet. Let her talk. Chaya then unveiled her brilliant new plan to foster mutual accountability. It was a mandatory buddy system. Each of us was assigned an accountability partner. Your performance for the month would be directly linked to your partners. You were supposed to support, encourage, and enable each other. We had to have daily check-ins with our partner and submit a weekly report to her, co-signed, detailing our collaborative efforts. She thought she was being clever. She thought she could force us to care about each other's numbers by tying our performance together. She had just invented teamwork, but with more paperwork and forced social interaction. My assigned partner was one of the younger guys, Tim. He was a good kid, but he was clearly terrified of Chaya and just wanted to keep his job. Derek was paired with Nolan. Chaya announced that pairing with a smirk, saying she wanted Nolan's veteran experience to mentor Derek's latent leadership potential. She was trying to put her two biggest problems in a cage together, hoping they'd neutralize each other. It was a massive miscalculation. The third month began, and it was somehow even more dysfunctional than the second. The buddy system was a complete farce from day one. Our daily check-ins were a joke. Tim would walk over to my desk, looking nervous. "So, you, making any calls?" I'd tell him, "Yeah, a few." "You?" "Yeah, me too." "Okay, good check-in." The weekly reports were works of fiction. We filled them with the most meaningless corporate platitudes we could think of. This week, Brian and Tim engaged in synergistic workflow alignment to maximize client outreach potential. We leveraged our mutual skill sets to overcome collaborative challenges and foster a positive feedback loop. Chaya read these reports and seemed to believe them. She'd send back emails with notes like, "Excellent progress. This is what true teamwork looks like." Meanwhile, Derek and Nolan's partnership was a thing of beauty. They held their check-ins at the coffee machine. They'd just stand there, talking about sports, or cars, or anything other than work. Their weekly reports were masterpieces of sarcastic compliance. Nolan wrote things like, Derek has shown remarkable growth in his journey away from individualistic paradigms. His commitment to the collective is an inspiration. Derek wrote, "Nolan's wisdom has been a guiding light in these challenging times. He has helped me to deconstruct my own competitive instincts. They were openly mocking her, but her ideology was so rigid that she couldn't see it. She took it as a sincere victory. The actual sales numbers, however, continued to be abysmal. We were all still operating on the bare minimum principle. The buddy system just meant we now had to coordinate our slacking off. But then something happened that changed the game. It was about the middle of the month. Derek got a call. It was a huge potential client, a company we had been trying to land for over a year. Under the old system, this would have been Derek's Super Bowl. He would have locked himself in a conference room, worked 18-hour days, and moved heaven and earth to close that deal. The commission would have been life-changing. But now, there was no incentive. The potential revenue from this one deal was more than our entire department's monthly quota. Closing it would mean we'd hit our team goal instantly. It would also mean that Derek would do 90% of the work, and the reward would be the same tiny, pathetic team bonus for everyone. He'd make the company a fortune and get a few $100s for his trouble. So, he didn't chase it. He treated this massive company-making client like any other small-time lead. He was polite. He answered their questions. He told them he'd send a proposal sometime next week. There was no urgency, no fire. The client, used to being courted aggressively, was confused. They called back a few days later, asking for the proposal. Derek told them he was still collaborating on it with the team to ensure it aligned with our new holistic values. This was a lie, of course. He was just stalling. We all knew what was happening. We watched it unfold like a slow-motion car crash. The client got tired of waiting. They were a serious business, and they needed a vendor who was serious about their business. A week later, we heard through the grapevine that they had signed a massive multi-year contract with our biggest competitor. The news hit the office like a shockwave. This wasn't just about a bad sales month anymore. This was a direct, catastrophic loss that would have repercussions for years. Chaya found out, and she completely lost it. She stormed out of her office and marched over to Derek's desk. She was shouting, in the middle of the open office. She screamed at him, asking how he could have been so incompetent, how he could have let them get away. Derek just sat there, calm and collected, letting her yell. When she finally ran out of breath, he looked up at her. He spoke in a low, even voice that somehow cut through the entire office. He explained that he followed her process perfectly. He didn't rush. He didn't engage in aggressive competitive tactics. He worked on it collaboratively with his accountability partner. He focused on the journey, not the outcome. He told her, "I am the model employee of the system you created. This result is the system working as designed." Her face went from red with anger to white with shock. She had no response. She had been beaten with her own logic, her own rule book. She just turned around, walked back into her office, and slammed the door. The rest of the month was a funeral procession. We didn't even come close to hitting the target. I think the final number was somewhere around 60%. The quarter was ending, and that meant the quarterly business review was coming. This wasn't just a meeting with Chaya. This was a meeting with her boss, the regional director, a man named Mr. Harrison. We didn't know much about Harrison. He was based in the corporate head office and usually only showed up once or twice a year. Nolan knew him, though. He told us Harrison was an old-school guy, a numbers man. Started his career in sales and worked his way up. He didn't care about buzzwords or culture initiatives. He cared about one thing, profit and loss. The day of the review arrived. Mr. Harrison walked into our department. He was in his late 50s, tall, impeccably dressed. He had an aura of quiet, serious authority. He didn't smile. He just nodded at us as he walked past, his eyes scanning the quiet, lifeless office. He went straight into Chaya's glass-walled office. Chaya was doing all the talking. Chaya was doing all the talking. She was pointing at charts and graphs. She had that confident, smiling posture again. She was clearly trying to sell her narrative. Mr. Harrison just sat there, listening, not moving a muscle. His face was unreadable. Then he started talking. He picked up a sheet of paper. We knew it was the sales report. Chaya's confident posture collapsed. She started gesturing wildly. She was talking fast, defensive. She kept pointing out through the glass at us, at Derek's desk, at Nolan's. It was obvious she was throwing us under the bus, blaming the team for everything, calling us saboteurs, relics, resistant to her brilliant vision. Harrison just listened. He never raised his voice. He would just ask a question, and she would erupt in a flurry of excuses. This went on for about 15 minutes. Then, Mr. Harrison looked up and made eye contact with me. He gestured for me to come into the office. A cold knot of dread formed in my stomach. I thought I was being called in to be fired. I walked in. He gestured for me to take a seat. He also motioned for Nolan to join us. The room was tense. Chaya was staring at us with pure hatred in her eyes. Mr. Harrison looked at me, then at Nolan. He didn't ask for our opinions. He didn't ask for excuses. He put the sales report down on the table between us. It was covered in red ink. He tapped his finger on the chart showing our department's performance. It looked like a graph of a plane crash, a steady high line for years, and then a vertical drop 3 months ago. He looked at Nolan and asked one simple question. What changed 3 months ago? Nolan didn't hesitate. He spoke in a calm, factual, and completely neutral tone, as if he were a witness testifying in court. He laid it all out. 3 months ago, our new department head, Miss Chaya, implemented a new managerial framework. First, the real-time public leaderboard, which ranked individual performance, was removed. Second, all individual commissions and performance-based bonuses, which were previously uncapped, were eliminated. Third, a small flat-rate team bonus was introduced, contingent on the entire department reaching a collective monthly target. Mr. Harrison just listened, nodding slowly. Nolan continued. The team was instructed to deprioritize competition and focus on collaboration. We were told that individual achievement was less important than group harmony. He paused, then delivered the final killer line. As a team, we have been diligently following the new directives. The numbers you see on that page are the direct result of those policies being implemented as intended. There was a long, heavy silence in the room. Chaya looked like she wanted the floor to swallow her whole. Nolan had just dismantled her entire reality, her entire excuse, with a few simple, undeniable facts. He hadn't accused her of anything. He hadn't complained. He just stated cause and effect. And the effect was a multi-million-dollar disaster. Mr. Harrison stared at the report for a few moments. Then he looked at us. Thank you, gentlemen. That will be all. We got up and walked out of the office. We sat back down at our desks. The whole office was silent, waiting. 10 minutes later, Chaya's door opened. Mr. Harrison walked out. He didn't even look at her. He just said, "My assistant will be in touch," and walked out of the department. A few minutes after that, Chaya emerged. She was carrying one of those standard cardboard boxes for personal belongings. Her face was pale and blotchy. Her eyes were red. She walked through the office, past all our desks, without looking at a single one of us. She was gone, just like that. The reign of terror was over. The next morning, Mr. Harrison came back. He called us all into the conference room. He stood at the head of the table. He didn't sit down. His speech was probably the shortest and most effective I've ever heard from a corporate executive. He said, "Good morning. As of today, I am your interim department head. The experiment of the last quarter is officially over. Effective immediately, the previous compensation plan is reinstated. All individual commissions and performance bonuses are back." A quiet murmur went through the room, a wave of relief. He wasn't finished. Maintenance is on its way to reinstall the leaderboard on the wall. It should be operational by noon. Your quotas have been reset. Your only job is to sell. That's it. He looked around the room, making eye contact with each of us. Any questions? No one had any. Good, he said. Get back to work. And he walked out. It was like a switch had been flipped. Before I had even gotten back to my desk, I heard it. The sound I hadn't heard in 3 months. It was Derek. He was on his headset, his voice sharp, energetic, persuasive. "John, great to hear from you. Listen, about that expansion plan we talked about last year, I think I have a solution that's going to make you very, very happy." He was hunting again. The shark was back in the water. Across the office, phones started ringing. The buzz was back. The energy level in the room went from 0 to 100 in less than 5 minutes. It was loud. It was chaotic. It was competitive. By noon, the big screen was back on the wall, glowing with our names and numbers. By the end of the day, Derek was already at the top of the board with a massive sale. He did a victory lap, and for the first time in months, nobody resented him for it. We were happy to see it. It felt normal. It felt right. I closed a decent deal myself, and it felt incredible knowing that my effort was directly connected to my reward again. I looked over at Nolan. He was on the phone too, charming a client. He caught my eye and gave me a slow, knowing wink. I finally understood what he meant when he said the world always finds a way to screw with a good thing. But sometimes, if you're patient, it also finds a way to fix it. The office was toxic again, and business was booming.